Have you ever wondered what it would be like bidding to adopt a wild horse or burro in the Online Corral? If so, then this episode of Freedom for Wild Horses is for you. I'm your host, Carol Walker, and let's get started. Welcome to the Freedom for Wild Horses podcast, the place to find out about wild horses in the American West and what you can do to help them stay wild and free. If you love wildlife, wild horses, and the freedom that they stand for, this show is for you. I'm your host, Carol Walker. Let's get started. What is the Online Corral? It's an online event, usually running for 1 week, that gives people interested in adopting wild horses from the Bureau of Land Management the opportunity to bid on horses online, as opposed to in person. Bidders need to sign up for an account and then submit an application to adopt or purchase wild horses. If the BLM approves their application, then the bidders may bid on as many horses as they have been approved for. The information about the age and sex of the horse, as well as which herd management area they came from, and photos and sometimes video, are listed with each horse. I did research on this once I learned that the 39 wild horses rounded up and removed from the McCullough Peaks herd from January to March 2024 were going to be offered there. The explanation given for doing the adoption this way instead of having an in-person event at the Rock Springs Corrals in Rock Springs, Wyoming, was that because the horses in this herd were so popular, the only fair way to allow everyone to have an opportunity to get them was to offer them online. The Bureau of Land Management's May Online Corral ended 2 weeks ago. This was my first experience bidding online to adopt a horse, as I had adopted all 3 of my Mustangs at in-person events, paying $125 for 2 of them and $25 for my youngest. I had many reservations and concerns about this format since the March online event had crashed completely and then restarted in April on a new server. Other than some glitches at the beginning, technical problems were not an issue. However, the horses went for much higher prices online than I had ever witnessed at an in-person event, where interested adopters brought their trailers with them and at the end of the event were able to load up and take home the horses they had bid on and won. But the facilities where the horses are housed love these online events. They don't have to advertise or staff in-person events, so it's much less work for them. This is not to the benefit of the horses. 14 McCullough Peaks mares and fillies were in this adoption, with photos but no video. There were also 951 other wild horses from 49 different herds, plus horses that had been born at a facility. The horses won with the highest bids were from McCullough Peaks: Moonshadow for $16,010, and Thora for a record-setting, crazy high $60,005. The bidders remain anonymous in the auction. Only the BLM knows their identity. During the auction, I found the BLM responsive to questions and requests that I submitted. I did not get the horse I wanted. I was simply outbid. At the beginning of the auction, bids on the McCullough Peaks mares and fillies were fast and furious, then calmed down the next day with bids coming more slowly. The bids on Thora right out of the gate seemed to rage out of control, going to a high that I'd never heard of, $30,000, and people contacted the BLM in concern, and apparently there had been evidence of faked bids being submitted, and these bids were removed, bringing her price down to $15,700, where it stayed until the last couple of days. The BLM then issued this message to all the registered bidders that day. Good afternoon. I would like to send a gentle reminder regarding the bidding integrity guidelines that we have implemented in the Online Corral. See below. This guidance can be found in the Online Corral User Guide under Section 7.5. Users found placing bids on animals with the intent to artificially increase their price or desirability will be subject to a range of actions, including limits on your bidding privileges and suspension of your Online Corral account. Do I think online adoptions are a good thing? No, I do not. There are too many issues. one of which I had heard from past participants in online events, that especially with popular or in-demand horses, that people could run up bids with no intention to adopt the horse in order to interfere with the results and to cause trouble. I also heard about strategies with 3 bidders, where 2 bidders run up the price of the horse really high to intimidate other bidders, then both of the top bidders drop out, leaving the third to win the horse with second chance at a much lower price. And allowing people to bid on and then reject the horse that they won with no consequences is crazy. Too many horses end up not being adopted at all. And the online shopping nature of the bidding does nothing but encourage people to drive up the prices without thinking through having to actually come up with the money at the end. One of the main reasons I think it's a bad idea is that you cannot get a true sense of the horse without watching it move or seeing it in person. All of the horses I have adopted, I knew in the wild beforehand. Of course, not everyone can do that, but in an in-person event, at least they can see the horse. They can see it interact with other horses. They can see it move. They can get an idea of its personality. This is very important. The photos of so many of these horses in the May auction were truly terrible, too dark to see properly, and not all had videos. And this is what you have to rely on to make such an important decision about hopefully a lifelong partner? With 64,000 wild horses and burros currently in short and long-term holding facilities, and 20,000 wild horses scheduled to be rounded up and removed forever from their freedom and their homes this year, it seems the only solution the BLM sees is to dump these horses into Online Corral. But there are not 20,000 adopters this year. Not even close. So the number of horses languishing in holding facilities will continue to grow and grow. The only people benefiting from this situation are the ranchers running the holding facilities and the contractors tasked with running the roundups. This is a huge financial benefit for them. Yes, the Online Corral events give people from all over the country the opportunity to bid on horses at different locations. And the winners have a choice of where they can pick up their horses. There are drop-off points given that the horses can be shipped to cut down on the cost of transportation. But there are also many issues with this as well. I've heard of many instances where people are shipped the wrong horse, and the adopter can decline the horse once it arrives with no consequences, and the horse can end up stranded at this location with no adopter. Online adopters can apply for AIP, the Adoption Incentive Program, where the adopter can receive $1,000 after their adopted horse is titled, to incentivize people to adopt horses. This program has resulted in thousands of horses being dumped at auction after they are titled, with kill buyers bidding on them to sell to slaughter. And what happens to these horses with no bids at all? They get a strike. After 3 strikes, they are eligible to be sold without limitation, with no protection from having to wait a year until they are titled. There's no possible way that dumping almost 1,000 horses into one online event is a good idea. Just looking through that many photos is a huge task. In this case, the popularity of the McCullough Peaks horses overshadowed the rest of the horses in the event. Less than half of those offered were adopted. I firmly believe that this online adoption program is not for the benefit of the horse and should be discontinued or at the very least reformed in a major way. People should have to put money down in order to bid on a horse, which would avoid most of the issues I have mentioned. Because the identity of the people bidding is not revealed, the only way we will know who got which horse is if the winning bidder shares that information. And I certainly hope that the winners of the McCullough Peaks horses do share. I hope that all of the mares and fillies, as well as the stallions soon to be gelded and offered in July or August, as well as the 4 mares who foaled at Rock Springs and will not be offered until the foals have been weaned and gelded, end up in the very best adopted homes, be they with private adopters or sanctuaries. Thank you for listening to this episode of Freedom for Wild Horses. Thank you for listening to this episode of Freedom for Wild Horses. If you want to learn more, follow me at www.wildhoofbeats.com for more information and for ways to help America's wild horses. See you next time.